The American heartland is often romanticized as a place of simplicity and safety, a landscape where the hustle of city life gives way to the serene calm of nature. But the case of the Jamison family, who vanished into the wilds of Oklahoma in 2009, shatters that idyllic image, revealing a mystery as deep and dark as the forests that claimed their lives. Eufaula, Oklahoma, is a town that feels like it was plucked from another era. Nestled near one of the state's largest lakes, it is a place where people know their neighbors and where life moves at a measured pace. But beneath its surface, like many rural communities, Eufaula has its share of struggles: economic hardships, isolation, and the ever-present shadow of the opioid epidemic that has devastated so many small American towns. Bobby Dale Jamison and Sherilyn Jamison were not immune to these struggles. Bobby, a former truck driver, was no longer able to work due to severe back pain following a car accident in 2003. His pain was so debilitating that he often found it difficult to move, and it cast a pall over his life. He turned to disability checks to support his family, but the constant pain took a toll on his mental health, leaving him withdrawn and depressed. Sherilyn had her own battles. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she was known for her mood swings and bouts of deep depression. Despite her condition, Sherilyn was described by friends as a loving mother who doted on her daughter, Madison, a vibrant and precocious 6-year-old with a mischievous smile. The Jamison family was tight-knit but reclusive, preferring to spend time together rather than socializing extensively with others. They had recently become more isolated after an incident involving Sherilyn's sister, who had died unexpectedly from a bee sting. The loss had hit Sherilyn hard, deepening her depression and leading to a period of intense grief. In the months leading up to their disappearance, the Jamisons had grown increasingly interested in the idea of living off the grid. They dreamed of buying a plot of land in the remote Saint-Bois Mountains, where they could build a simple, self-sustaining life away from the pressures of modern society. The family made several trips to the area to explore potential properties, but it was their final trip in October 2009 that would become the stuff of nightmares. The morning of October 8, 2009, began like any other for the Jamison family. Security footage from their home shows them moving in and out of their house, loading up their white pickup truck with various items. The footage is eerie. Both Bobby and Sherilyn appear expressionless, almost as if they were in a trance. They move back and forth with a mechanical precision, never speaking to each other, their faces devoid of emotion. Madison is also seen on the footage, but like her parents, she shows no signs of the playful energy that was her trademark. There is something unsettling about the footage. The family's movements are slow and deliberate, almost robotic. Some have speculated that the Jamisons were under the influence of drugs, while others believe that they may have been under some form of psychological duress. Whatever the case, the footage is the last known sighting of the family alive. The Jamisons drove away from their home that morning, heading toward the Saint-Bois Mountains, about 30 miles away. They had planned to spend the day exploring the area and possibly putting down a deposit on the land they were interested in purchasing. They had been in contact with a local landowner and were serious about making the move to a more secluded life. But as the day wore on and the Jamisons failed to return home, their absence began to raise alarm bells. Family members tried to reach them by phone, but there was no answer. Hours turned into days, and when the Jamisons still hadn't returned, they were reported missing. On October 16, 2009, 8 days after the family was last seen, hunters stumbled upon the Jamisons' white pickup truck parked on a dirt road near Red Oak, a small town at the edge of the mountains. The truck was locked, and inside was a scene that deepened the mystery rather than clarified it. The truck's interior was a snapshot of the family's life frozen in time. Sherilyn's purse was on the front seat, along with Bobby's wallet and their IDs. The GPS system was still plugged in, and the family's mobile phones were inside the vehicle. Oddly, there was also a substantial amount of cash, $32,000, hidden under the driver's seat. But most puzzling of all was the presence of the family dog, Maisie, who was still alive but severely malnourished after being trapped in the truck for over a week. Maisie's survival was a small miracle, but her presence also raised disturbing questions. Why had the Jamisons left their beloved pet behind in the truck? What had caused them to abandon their vehicle in such a remote location, with no apparent effort to take their belongings or ensure their own safety? The discovery of the truck kicked off a massive search operation involving law enforcement, volunteers, and search dogs. The dense woods and rugged terrain of the Sans-Bois Mountains made the search difficult, but the sheer number of people involved gave hope that the Jamisons would be found. For days, searchers combed the area, covering miles of forest, creeks, and ravines. But despite their efforts, there was no trace of the family. No footprints, no signs of a struggle, nothing to indicate what had happened to them. The case was quickly becoming one of the most baffling mysteries in Oklahoma's history. As the search continued with no results, speculation about the Jamisons' fate began to take on a life of its own. The discovery of the $32,000 in cash fueled rumors and conspiracy theories, each more outlandish than the last. One of the earliest theories to gain traction was that the Jamisons were involved in drug trafficking. The area around Eufaula and the Sans-Bois Mountains had a reputation as a hub for methamphetamine production, and the presence of a large sum of cash in the truck led many to believe that the family was involved in a drug deal gone wrong. Perhaps they had been meeting someone in the mountains and things had taken a deadly turn, but there was no concrete evidence to support this theory. No drugs were found in the truck, and the family had no known connections to drug dealers or users. Cult connections. Another theory that emerged was the idea that the Jamisons had become involved with a cult. This theory was bolstered by statements from Sherilyn's mother, who claimed that her daughter had been involved with a group of people who practiced witchcraft and were trying to recruit her. Sherilyn was known to have a keen interest in the paranormal, and friends reported that she had been experimenting with seances and other occult practices in the months before her disappearance. Adding to the mystery, an 11-page letter written by Sherilyn was found in the truck. The letter, addressed to Bobby, was filled with venomous language and accusations, leading some to believe that Sherilyn's mental state had deteriorated to the point where she might have harmed her family. The idea of cult involvement, while compelling, remains speculative. There is no direct evidence linking the Jamisons to any specific group. Family animosity. The letter found in the truck also gave rise to another theory, that of a murder-suicide. In the letter, Sherilyn expressed deep anger and frustration with Bobby, accusing him of not caring about her or Madison. Some have suggested that Sherilyn, in a fit of rage, may have shot Bobby and Madison before turning the gun on herself. However, no firearms were found in the truck or at the scene, and the idea of a murder-suicide is contradicted by the lack of evidence suggesting a struggle or the use of a weapon. A random act of violence. Others believe that the Jamisons were victims of a random act of violence, perhaps at the hands of a transient or a criminal passing through the area. The remote location of their disappearance, coupled with the cash in the truck, could have made them targets for robbery or worse. But again, there were no signs of a struggle, and the fact that the cash was left behind seemed to contradict this theory. Paranormal activity. Given the bizarre nature of the case, some have speculated that the Jamisons fell victim to something supernatural. The area around the Sans-Bois Mountains is steeped in local folklore, with tales of spirits, strange lights, and other unexplained phenomena. Sherilyn's interest in the paranormal, combined with the eerie behavior seen in the security footage, has led some to wonder if the family encountered something beyond human understanding. While this theory is the most fantastical, it has persisted, fueled by the lack of concrete answers in the case. As weeks turned into months, and then years, the search for the Jamison family continued to come up empty. The case grew cold, with only occasional tips and sightings, none of which panned out. The small town of Eufaula was left with more questions than answers, and the mystery of the Jamison family began to fade from the headlines, becoming another unsolved case in the annals of American crime. But for those who knew the Jamisons, the pain of their loss was a constant presence. Family members and friends were left to grapple with their grief and the gnawing uncertainty of what had happened to their loved ones. Theories and rumors swirled, but the lack of closure made it impossible to move on. 4 years after the Jamison family disappeared, their case took a grim turn. On November 16, 2013, 2 hunters were exploring a remote area in the Sans-Bois Mountains when they stumbled upon skeletal remains scattered among the underbrush. The remains were quickly identified as those of Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison Jamison. The discovery was both a breakthrough and a heartbreak. While it confirmed that the family had met a tragic end, it also raised more questions than it answered. The remains were found less than 3 miles from where the truck had been abandoned, in an area that had been searched extensively back in 2009. How had the remains gone unnoticed for so long? And more importantly, what had caused their deaths? The condition of the remains made it impossible to determine a cause of death. The bones were too deteriorated to provide any clear answers, and there were no signs of trauma or foul play. The medical examiner could not rule out any specific cause of death, leaving investigators with little to go on. The lack of evidence at the scene only deepened the mystery. The discovery of the Jamison family's remains brought an end to the search, but it did not bring closure. The circumstances of their deaths remain shrouded in mystery, with no definitive answers to what happened on that fateful day in October 2009. Theories continue to abound, each one as plausible or implausible as the next. Was the family targeted by someone they knew, or were they victims of a random act of violence? Did they fall prey to the harsh elements of the wilderness, succumbing to exposure and starvation? Or was there something more sinister at play, something that defies explanation? The Jamison family's case remains one of the most perplexing, unsolved mysteries in modern American history. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, private investigators, and countless armchair detectives, the truth remains elusive. The remote and unforgiving landscape of the Sandsbois Mountains has kept its secrets well. The disappearance and deaths of the Jamison family have left an indelible mark on the community of Eufaula and on those who have followed the case. The story has inspired numerous articles, documentaries, and podcasts, each seeking to unravel the mystery that continues to baffle even the most seasoned investigators. For the families of Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison, the pain of their loss is compounded by the lack of answers. They are left to wonder what happened in those final moments, why the family met such a tragic end, and whether justice will ever be served. In the years since the discovery of their remains, the case has periodically resurfaced in the media, each time reigniting the debate over what happened to the Jamisons. But despite the renewed interest, the case remains unsolved, a dark chapter in the annals of Oklahoma's history. The Jamison family's story is a stark reminder that even in the age of modern forensics and technology, some mysteries remain beyond our grasp. The remote and rugged landscape of the Sandsbois Mountains, with its dense forests and hidden ravines, is a place where the answers to those mysteries may be forever lost. And so, the story of the Jamison family endures, a tale of tragedy, loss, and unanswered questions. It is a story that has captured the imagination of all who hear it, a story that will continue to haunt those who seek to understand what happened in the wilds of southeastern Oklahoma on that fateful October day. The mystery of the Jamison family may never be solved, but it will not be forgotten. The eerie, unsettling details of their disappearance and the discovery of their remains serve as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of the unknown. As long as the case remains unsolved, the story of the Jamisons will continue to captivate and confound, leaving us all to wonder what really happened to this family in the heart of America's wilderness.